7-year-old Tommy Martinez was the kind of child who brought energy and laughter wherever he went. He had curly brown hair that never seemed to stay combed, bright green eyes that sparkled with mischief, and a smile that could light up any room. Tommy was obsessed with soccer and spent every free moment kicking his red ball around the yard, dreaming of one day playing for his favorite team, the local Thunderhawks. His parents, Miguel and Elena, often joked that their son had springs in his shoes because he never seemed to walk anywhere. He was always running, jumping, or bouncing from one adventure to the next. On that fateful Saturday morning in June 2015, Tommy had been particularly restless. The weather was perfect, sunny and warm, with a gentle breeze that made it ideal for outdoor play. He had finished his breakfast of chocolate chip pancakes and orange juice in record time, barely sitting still long enough to take more than a few bites before asking if he could go outside. Elena had planned to spend the morning doing laundry and cleaning the house, but Tommy's enthusiasm was infectious, and she found herself smiling at his excitement. The Martinez family lived at 847 Maple Street, in a neighborhood that epitomized the American dream of safe suburban living. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained lawns, and children's bicycles scattered on driveways painted a picture of community harmony. Their house was a modest 2-story colonial with blue shutters and a white picket fence that Miguel had installed himself when they first moved in 5 years earlier. The front yard was Tommy's favorite playground, with plenty of space to practice his soccer moves and a large oak tree that provided shade during the hottest parts of summer days. Elena had established clear rules about outdoor play that Tommy understood well. He could play in the front yard as long as he stayed within the boundaries of their property. He had to come inside immediately when called, and he was never to talk to strangers or leave the yard without permission. Tommy had always been an obedient child who followed these rules without question, which made his parents feel secure about letting him play outside unsupervised for short periods. That morning, Elena positioned herself at the kitchen sink where she could easily see Tommy through the large window that faced the front yard. She began washing dishes from breakfast while keeping one eye on her son, who was already dribbling his red soccer ball across the grass with impressive skill for someone so young. Tommy had been taking soccer lessons at the community center for 2 years, and his coach had recently told Miguel and Elena that their son showed real promise and natural athletic ability. As Elena worked, she could hear Tommy's running commentary as he played, mimicking the sports announcers he heard during televised soccer matches. "Tommy Martinez has the ball," he would say in his best grown-up voice. "He's moving down the field. He shoots. He scores." Each successful goal attempt was followed by his victory dance, a silly routine he had invented that involved spinning in circles with his arms raised above his head. These moments of pure childhood joy were what Elena treasured most about being a mother. The morning passed peacefully, with Tommy completely absorbed in his solo soccer practice. Elena finished the dishes and moved on to folding laundry, still keeping the kitchen window in her peripheral vision. Occasionally, she would see Tommy take a water break, sitting under the oak tree and wiping sweat from his forehead with the bottom of his bright blue t-shirt. He had chosen that particular shirt because it was the same color as his favorite soccer team's uniform, and he wore it whenever he played outside, convinced it brought him good luck. Around noon, Elena noticed that Mrs. Patterson from next door, who had come outside to tend to her garden. Mrs. Patterson was an elderly widow who had lived on Maple Street for over 30 years and had watched Tommy grow from a toddler into the energetic 7-year-old he had become. She often commented on what a polite, well-behaved child he was, and Tommy always greeted her with enthusiasm whenever he saw her outside. Elena watched through the window as Tommy ran over to the fence to chat with Mrs. Patterson, probably telling her about his latest soccer achievements or asking about her flowers. At 12:30, Elena called Tommy inside for lunch, but there was no immediate response. This wasn't unusual, as Tommy often became so focused on his play that he didn't hear the first call. Elena dried her hands on a dish towel and walked to the front door, opening it and calling more loudly, "Tommy, lunchtime, sweetheart." The front yard was empty except for his red soccer ball, which sat motionless on the grass near the oak tree. Elena stepped outside, assuming Tommy had perhaps gone around to the backyard or was hiding behind the large tree as part of some game he had invented. "Tommy, this isn't funny," she called, trying to keep the concern out of her voice. "Come inside right now. Your sandwich is ready." She walked around the entire perimeter of their property, checking behind bushes and trees, looking in the small garden shed, and even checking inside Miguel's truck that was parked in the driveway. When 5 minutes of searching turned into 10, Elena felt the first real stirrings of panic. Tommy had never failed to respond when called for meals, and he had never left the yard without permission. She ran back inside and grabbed her cell phone, calling Miguel at the construction site where he was working. Her hands were shaking as she dialed, and when Miguel answered with his usual cheerful, "Hey, beautiful," Elena could barely get the words out. "Miguel, I can't find Tommy," she said, her voice breaking. "I called him for lunch and he's not in the yard. His ball is here, but he's gone." Miguel's tone immediately changed from casual to urgent. He told his foreman he had a family emergency and left the job site immediately. breaking speed limits as he raced home through the Saturday afternoon traffic. While waiting for Miguel to arrive, Elena ran through the neighborhood, knocking on doors and asking every neighbor if they had seen Tommy. Mrs. Patterson confirmed that she had spoken with Tommy around noon, and he had mentioned something about wanting to show her a new soccer trick he had learned. She hadn't seen him since then, but she assured Elena that she would call everyone she knew to help search for the little boy. Miguel arrived home within 20 minutes. His face pale with worry and his work clothes covered in dust from the construction site. He immediately began organizing a more systematic search, asking Elena to call Tommy's friends while he checked with neighbors they hadn't reached yet. The Martinez family had lived on Maple Street long enough to build genuine relationships with most of their neighbors, and word of Tommy's disappearance spread quickly through the tight-knit community. By 2 p.m., nearly 30 neighbors had joined the search effort. They formed groups to cover different areas systematically. Some searched the nearby playground and community center. Others checked the wooded area behind the elementary school, and a few drove through surrounding neighborhoods, calling Tommy's name from their car windows. The local ice cream truck driver, who knew Tommy well because the boy always ran out to buy a popsicle when he heard the familiar jingle, agreed to drive his route slowly while keeping an eye out for the missing child. At 3 p.m., Miguel and Elena made the phone call that no parent ever wants to make. They contacted the local police department to report their 7-year-old son missing. Officer Patricia Rodriguez was the first to respond, arriving within 10 minutes with her partner, Officer Mike Chen. Both officers were parents themselves and understood the terror that Miguel and Elena were experiencing. They immediately began taking detailed information about Tommy's disappearance, while calling for additional backup and specialized units. The police response was swift and comprehensive. Within an hour, Maple Street looked like a scene from a television crime drama, with police cars, search and rescue vehicles, and volunteers filling every available parking space. Detective James Harrison, a 20-year veteran of the force who specialized in missing persons cases, took charge of the investigation. He had worked dozens of missing child cases throughout his career, and he knew that the first few hours were critical in determining the outcome. Detective Harrison's first step was to establish a timeline of Tommy's last known activities through interviews with Elena, Mrs. Patterson, and other neighbors. They determined that Tommy had been seen playing in his front yard as recently as 12:15 p.m., just 15 minutes before Elena had called him for lunch. This narrow window suggested that whatever had happened to Tommy had occurred very quickly and very recently, which gave Harrison hope that the child might still be found alive and unharmed. The police brought in search dogs from the county K9 unit, German shepherds trained specifically to track missing persons. The dogs were given Tommy's scent from clothing in his bedroom, and they immediately began working the area around the Martinez home. The lead dog, an experienced tracker named Scout, picked up Tommy's scent in the front yard and followed it to the sidewalk, but then the trail seemed to vanish completely. This suggested that Tommy might have gotten into a vehicle, which was every parent's worst nightmare scenario. An Amber Alert was issued at 4:30 p.m., broadcasting Tommy's description and photograph across radio, television, and digital highway signs throughout the state. The alert described Tommy as a 7-year-old Hispanic male, 4 feet tall, weighing approximately 60 pounds, with brown curly hair and green eyes. He was last seen wearing a bright blue soccer t-shirt, denim shorts, and red sneakers. The response from the public was immediate and overwhelming, with the police tip line receiving dozens of calls within the first hour as evening approached. The search effort expanded to include helicopter units equipped with thermal imaging cameras. The helicopters flew grid patterns over the city and surrounding rural areas, looking for any signs of Tommy or unusual activity that might be related to his disappearance. Search teams with powerful flashlights combed through every park, wooded area, and abandoned building within a 10-mile radius of the Martinez home. Miguel and Elena spent that first night at the police station, answering questions and working with sketch artists to create detailed descriptions of anyone who might have had contact with Tommy in recent weeks. They provided photos, videos, and personal items that might help in the search effort. Elena kept Tommy's favorite stuffed animal, a small soccer ball-shaped teddy bear named Striker, clutched in her arms throughout the night, finding some small comfort in holding something that smelled like her son. The media attention was intense from the very beginning. Local television stations interrupted regular programming to report on Tommy's disappearance, and his school photo was broadcast across the region. Elena and Miguel appeared on camera, pleading with anyone who might have information about their son to come forward. Elena's voice broke as she described Tommy's love of soccer and his dreams of playing professionally one day. Miguel struggled to maintain his composure as he offered a reward for information, leading to Tommy's safe return. The first week of the investigation yielded hundreds of tips but no credible leads. There were reported sightings of Tommy in neighboring towns, at shopping malls 3 states away, and even at an airport in California. Each tip had to be thoroughly investigated, requiring coordination with law enforcement agencies across the country. Detective Harrison and his team worked around the clock, following up on every possible lead, no matter how unlikely it seemed. The community response was extraordinary. Local businesses donated food and supplies for the search volunteers. Churches organized prayer vigils, and children from Tommy's school made posters with his picture that were displayed throughout the city. A candlelight vigil held in the park where Tommy often played soccer drew over 500 people, creating a sea of flickering flames that could be seen for miles. Elena and Miguel were overwhelmed by the outpouring of support, but they struggled to find hope as days passed without any sign of their son. As the investigation entered its second week, Detective Harrison expanded the focus to include a thorough background check of every adult who had regular contact with Tommy. This included teachers, coaches, neighbors, family friends, and even delivery drivers who serviced the Martinez neighborhood. While this was standard procedure in missing child cases, it was emotionally difficult for Miguel and Elena to consider that someone they knew and trusted might have harmed their son. The soccer community rallied around the Martinez family in remarkable ways. Tommy's team, the Thunderhawks, dedicated their entire season to finding their missing teammate. They wore special patches with Tommy's name and number on their uniforms, and they began each practice with a moment of silence for their friend. The team's coach, Sandra Williams, organized fundraising events to support the search effort and to help the Martinez family with expenses as Miguel had taken extended leave from work to focus on finding Tommy. 3 weeks after Tommy's disappearance, Elena returned to her job as a third-grade teacher. Not because she wanted to, but because she felt she needed some semblance of normalcy to maintain her sanity. Her students had made cards and drawings for Tommy, and she kept them in a special box on her desk. Teaching became both a distraction from her grief and a constant reminder of what she had lost. As every child in her classroom was approximately the same age as her missing son, Miguel threw himself into the search effort with obsessive determination. He created a command center in their dining room, with maps covering the walls and detailed charts tracking every tip and lead that had been investigated. He maintained contact with missing children organizations across the country and corresponded with other families who had experienced similar tragedies. His construction work became sporadic as he frequently left job sites to follow up on potential sightings or new information about Tommy's case. The first anniversary of Tommy's disappearance was marked with a memorial service at the park where he had played soccer. The community gathered once again to show support for the Martinez family and to ensure that Tommy's case remained in the public consciousness. Elena and Miguel spoke about their son's vibrant personality and their unwavering belief that he was still alive somewhere, waiting to be found. They announced the establishment of the Tommy Martinez Foundation, dedicated to helping other families of missing children and supporting search and rescue efforts. Detective Harrison never closed Tommy's case, even as other urgent investigations demanded his attention. He kept Tommy's file on his desk and continued to follow up on tips and new leads as they emerged. Advances in technology provided new tools for investigating cold cases, and Harrison periodically reviewed the evidence. Using updated forensic techniques, he had made a personal commitment to the Martinez family that he would never stop looking for their son. As years passed, the Martinez family tried to rebuild their lives while never abandoning hope of finding Tommy. They moved to a smaller house across town, unable to bear living in the place where their son had vanished, but they kept his bedroom exactly as it had been on the day he disappeared. Elena continued teaching, finding purpose in nurturing other people's children, while Miguel started his own construction company, naming it Tommy's Dream Builders in honor of his son who had always loved watching him work. The case received periodic media attention, especially on anniversaries and when similar cases occurred in other parts of Thedo. You like this with, please share and subscribe the channel. Best of luck.